Hello, listeners. Today is February 7th, 2025. Happy Friday. This is The Science of Self, where you improve your life from the inside out. Today, we're diving into a fascinating new book that promises to help you master multiple disciplines, learn new skills, think flexibly, and become an extraordinary autodidact. That book is Polymath by Peter Hollins. This book is all about embracing the concept of being a polymath, a person of wide knowledge and learning. The link to the book is bit.ly/Polymath Hollins. See what Peter Hollins has to offer and how his work can improve your life from the inside out. The book is available on Amazon, as well as the audiobook on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. For more information, check out Peter's website at bit.ly/Peter Hollins. Benjamin Franklin is one of American history's most successful and influential figures. What exactly was he famous for? At this point, he's mostly relegated to political theory, but during his own time, he was known for just about everything. Franklin was an accomplished inventor, respected politician, and leading scientist. He engaged with current affairs, wrote prolifically on many topics, and acted as a diplomat, statesman, and passionate activist. He was a businessman who founded many organizations, such as the University of Pennsylvania and the first ever fire department in Philadelphia. Franklin was a postmaster and a political satirist. He invented a more efficient freestanding stove, a musical instrument, the harmonica, if you're interested, and bifocals to deal with his own failing vision. He dabbled in electricity and conducted the famous lightning, metal key, and kite experiment. Oh, and he was one of the 5 key people who put together the American Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution. His immense contributions to a wide range of fields make people wonder where the United States of America would be, even without Benjamin Franklin. Many school children accidentally believe he was a president at some point. It's not true, but it isn't hard to imagine the man finding time to run a country on the side of the countless other projects, inventions, and enterprises he managed. So, what is Benjamin Franklin famous for? We could say that this sheer breadth of knowledge distinguishes him, i.e., that he's a polymath. This term from the Greek means having learnt much, and was seemingly made for men like Franklin. Polymaths have knowledge in a wide range of subjects and fields, rather than specializing in just one. They are accomplished in multiple disciplines, seemingly thriving in the field of human inquiry itself, beyond the boundaries we draw between categories of study. The world's most famous polymaths blend academic fields or create new ones from scratch. They are the quintessential Renaissance men, who can do a little or a lot of everything and inspire us to imagine what the limits of human understanding and learning really are. It seems like they possess superpowers considering their prowess in multiple realms of knowledge. Other famous polymaths are also people you know by name and reputation. Leonardo da Vinci, René Descartes, Elon Musk, Plato, Isaac Newton, Galileo, Michelangelo, Archimedes, and so on. It may not be possible to reach the levels of these people, but the quest of polymathism is something that could very well boost your life to new heights. Rather than being an inherent quality, it can be learned and cultivated by anyone, including you. This book is about what it means to become a polymath, a Renaissance man, and a versatile autodidact, someone who teaches themselves. In our complex modern world of increasingly narrow specialization, we can instead choose to develop ourselves holistically, becoming our best in the sciences, the arts, politics, academics, engineering, social affairs, literature, sports, and spiritual matters. Our goal as aspiring polymaths is, therefore, to become the kind of well-rounded and multiply accomplished human beings who can do all of these things with a degree of expertise. The name of the game is development, learning, and mastery. The particular fields we develop ourselves in are almost beside the point. Master of none. Have you heard the expression, jack of all trades, master of none? It's not a positive connotation that we associate with people who have many interests and spread their time around liberally. Despite revering intellectual powerhouses like Benjamin Franklin, in real life, some of us are dismissive of people who flit about, never settling in one field, but entertaining several, sometimes wildly different interests. The debate between the generalist and the specialist is ongoing and has fallen in and out of favor throughout history. When you survey the most prominent and successful scientists, it's easy to see that the majority were decidedly generalists. Rather than taking a shallow and ineffectual approach, they seemed instead to achieve even more for the fact that they had multiple interests at any one time. Ultra-successful entrepreneurs have also been known to dabble widely and continue to undertake projects of all stripes after they find success in one area. We could argue that these people are all geniuses who engaged with multiple disciplines because they were smart and successful, rather than the idea that their success was in part their versatility. But on the other hand, there are now several convincing studies showing a link between a person's achievements and the number of distinct interests and skills they hold. A 2009 paper by Robert Root Bernstein explored data from Nobel laureates in all disciplines and found a strong connection between creativity and being a polymath, thus challenging the idea that specialization is required for success. Let's take a closer look. When most people talk about famous polymaths, they're referring to people who have not just earned competencies in different areas, but who manage to creatively integrate those abilities, and the sum is inevitably greater than the parts. These are the people who are adept at not just one type of problem, and therefore one type of solution, but who are skillful at learning itself. They can blend and cross-pollinate ideas, methods, and solutions from all across mankind's rich tapestry, which often allows them to come up with game-changing big ideas. Many of the true leaps in a particular field or science have come from intelligent visitors from other disciplines who brought a fresh perspective and found a way to link material to the benefit of both fields, or even the creation of an entirely new branch. Imagine a T shape. The horizontal bar on the top represents breadth of knowledge across domains, while the vertical bar represents depth of knowledge in just one area. If you've read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, you may be familiar with the 10,000-hour rule, which claims that 10,000 hours of deliberate quality practice makes one an expert in a particular field. But this may not really apply to polymaths. They appear to make deep breakthroughs without putting in the hours. It's as though the creative combining of skills across disciplines allows for quicker breakthroughs than merely hammering away in just one field, unaware of anything else in other domains. When it comes to business or entrepreneurial polymaths, something else becomes clear. Being a generalist often means way less competition. It's an open field. A T-shape is not the goal for a polymath. Rather, a pie shape is, or even a comb shape, representing depth of knowledge in multiple realms. The specific combinations of these realms is where the magic happens. Charles Darwin, Elon Musk, and Leonardo da Vinci are famous polymaths, but you don't need to reach their level to benefit from their approach. You don't need several degrees or to dabble in the same topics. Physics, politics, business, and literature are all common, but rather than assuming there's something fundamental about these topics, ask why a polymath would be drawn to them. Being a polymath does require something of a perspective shift. Rather than running as far as you can in a single race, you open your field of perception to take in as much as possible and draw atypical connections to link the knowledge you already have in surprising ways. Be probing and bold in thought. Ask unusual questions and put things together that are ordinarily separate just to see what happens. A person might work in an ordinary office job doing, say, digital marketing, but they may be a voracious reader in their spare time, an active member in local politics, and a regular contributor to an out-there fiction magazine group that publishes poetry and short stories. Such a person might use, for example, their knowledge of Eric Berne's psychological game model, together with a keen understanding of the political climate in the area, to design a new reputation management package for their clients, thus winning them a promotion to manage this new department in the company. Rather than simply plowing away in the same old conceptual ruts, this person uses a creative blend of their skills and knowledge base to promote themselves in the workplace and literally open up new, potentially lucrative avenues. As is the case with many polymaths, they almost create their own jobs and roles, using their unique personalities and combination of skills to pursue precisely what interests them, often for profit. It may be that in our modern world, we reward those who can synthesize, network, and create in the face of incredible competition and complexity. As E.M. Forster famously advised, only connect. Read your chemistry book from a literature perspective. Ask what communist philosopher Karl Marx would say about the gig economy. If your interests include cooking, psychotherapy, gender studies, and business, why not experiment with an all-male cooking therapy group where older men can form beneficial connections with one another while they learn to cook for themselves after a divorce? Unfortunately, even though we live in a world almost literally run by polymaths like Jeff Bezos, most of us still cling to conventional wisdom that artificially creates the idea of distinct disciplines in the first place. We all went to schools that sliced up the curriculum into chunks. How many of us believe that some people are artsy language types and others are math and sciencey types, and the two can never have much to do with each other? True polymaths disregard limitations like these. Diversity, for them, is a blessing, and the more interests, the merrier. In this book, we'll not only consider all the ways that human beings are naturally polymaths, but also examine the very good reasons why you might like to enhance this ability in yourself, not just for personal fulfillment, but for academic and financial success as well. Being a specialist requires you to perform in the top 1%, for example, of just one discipline. A polymath will perform in, say, the top 25% of 3 disciplines or more. And here you see the first main advantage. Being a polymath is actually easier from this point of view. You can more quickly find yourself in the top 25% than in the 1%. How do you do this? Well, you stand on the shoulders of giants. You needn't invent the wheel anew each time. Part of a polymath's invaluable skill set is knowing how to quickly find and synthesize the highest quality information. This concept, known as skill stacking, is central to a later chapter in this book. Specialists the world over have done the heavy lifting and left a record for us. They've carried out in-depth testing and accumulated increasingly high-quality knowledge while filtering out less robust material. Today, we're blessed to have free access to this content, along with online courses, videos, free journal articles of original research, and material in the public domain. Now, more than ever, someone dedicated to learning can find a wonderland of resources out there, virtually for free. What Benjamin Franklin had to do with a quill pen, poor eyesight, and no internet, we can do today from the comfort of our sofas and pick up where he left off. We may take it for granted, but consider the wealth of specialist knowledge now easily available via a simple site like YouTube. In the past, you'd have to make real connections with other experts, go to the library, or learn things the hard way. But today, you can easily teach yourself an obscure skill, learn a new language, create software from your living room, or launch an international business in an afternoon. Some people look at the world and see all the big ideas as already thought out, all the inventions as already created. But a polymath knows there are endless ways to combine what already exists. How else do we have fields like evolutionary psychology, or the idea of the gut-brain axis? Once combined, these fields themselves open up new avenues again. How exciting! For polymaths, there is simply no limit. Growth is exponential when your strategy is combinatorial. There are no boundaries when you think in connected, holistic ways. It's the best way to break through a plateau or solve a problem that seems unsolvable. Another advantage is flexibility. The polymath approach is about diversifying, and the more varied your resources, the more resilient and adaptable to change. It goes a little further than future-proofing your career. A real polymath designs their own career. They don't have to worry about being left behind in dying industries. They're the ones at the vanguard, growing the new industries in the first place. You will naturally ask what is evolving and what the next big thing is if you have your finger on the pulse of human development and evolution. In fact, you may find success simply by being one of the first to capitalize on a new idea that others haven't taken the time to properly explore. Some of us can predict the future, but it stands to reason that the more options you have on the go, the more likely it is that one of those will take off. Consequently, you have other things to fall back on should one of your projects fail. Finally, there's a more subtle benefit to being a polymath as we move into the future. The problems Ben Franklin and his ilk faced were immense, but of a different scale entirely to the ones we have today. Think climate change, wealth inequality on a global scale, political instability, or the threat of complex, novel diseases. Being complicated and impossibly large, problems like these will need an integrated approach. The challenges facing humanity right now cannot be solved by specialists. They can, however, be tackled by polymaths who understand how to skillfully bring together the best from each specialist to make a solution as nuanced and complex as the problem itself. In many ways, the dilemmas of the future will take a little creative, fresh, out-of-the-box thinking. Individuals who can demonstrate this new meta skill will distinguish themselves in all avenues. Like our marketing employee example. Polymaths will not only engage with life in deeply fulfilling ways, they'll bring value to others in ways that are directly profitable to them. Original thinkers are always at a premium, and this is the case now more than ever. What's your shape? Being a polymath doesn't necessarily mean you have to fashion yourself after the great Renaissance men of old, taking up political life or oil painting or basement science experiments. In fact, modern polymathy will look distinctly different, and you can even apply to groups or organizations of people with diverse domain knowledge. Your goal as a polymath is to become a generalist, i.e., the person who can talk about any topic with anyone because they're able to bridge gaps, draw connections, and learn. Remember the T shape? If your skills profile resembled this shape, you would be a generalist to a shallow level with just one depth understanding in one field. This is definitely better than being an I shape with no general knowledge at all, only a depth skill, but that's not as good as a pie shape with 2 areas of depth knowledge, or even a comb shape with several depth branches off a more general knowledge base. But you can go further. Essentially, as a polymath, you want to diversify and reap the benefits of specialization and diversification. You need some general expertise to put into context a well-chosen inventory of more in-depth knowledge. You don't want to get lost in the narrow alley of just a single endeavor, losing all perspective and connection with the rest of the world. And you also don't want to skim the surface without truly grasping the field and, as a result, making weak, superficial connections. Polymaths find themselves in their position because of their natural intellectual curiosity. They don't deliberately set out to develop a particular skills profile, but allow it to grow organically based on their own innate limitations, the emerging opportunities around them, their skills and passions, the demand from the environment, and so on. Some tasks in life will naturally be better suited to a depth approach, slower-moving fields that are quite nuanced, and others better completed with a generalist approach of skimming for the big ideas and moving on, the faster-moving fields that are liable to change within a few years anyway. A polymath combines both for maximum results. For example, a woman might have studied a very general business degree, but keeps her other interests alive too. She spends a lot of time gaining depth understanding of the more fundamental and lasting business principles, but constantly flits around when it comes to supplementing her knowledge on more short-term interests. She takes short courses on app development, learns to code, volunteers, takes up a glass-blowing hobby, and reads anything from self-help books to continental philosophy, beat poetry, art history, and pulpy horror novels from the 60s. While she is certainly a polymath, she focuses many of her interests around the more general backbone of business studies, which acts as a framework and organizing principle. Now, add in another element. Some polymaths are not literally juggling all of this at the same time. They can choose to be serial specialists, spending a few years on each project, developing one of the depth prongs before moving on to another. Such a person might not immediately look like a polymath, but over time, they are steadily accumulating skills, mental models, connections, and possibilities. The longer they work and study, the more content they have to draw on, and the richer their palette becomes. In fact, one could abandon the old shapes entirely and consider becoming star-shaped, with interests expanding outwards in all directions. This is a decidedly non-linear way of looking at things, and emphasizes the value of expanding your skill set to cover the full span of human endeavor. To develop a star-shaped profile yourself, look to how you can put yourself in the top 25% of at least 3 areas, but preferably more. Seek mastery in a physical art, say running or dancing, an intellectual one, for example, your main occupational skill, and a social or relational one. You could take a counseling course, volunteer, or participate in a local political cause. Then, you can naturally start branching off on related tangents. Consider teaching dance, using your volunteer experiences to add value to yourself and your colleagues, and accessing your occupational network to find new connections and people to advance both of these endeavors. This is how polymaths organically grow their own empires, by making creative connections between just a few key areas. David Epstein's Polymath Bible, Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World, again studies Nobel Prize laureates, and Epstein found that these people were an astounding 22 times more likely to be amateur dancers, actors, poets, tinkerers, and so on, compared to more mediocre scientists. The conclusion is clear. Being a jack of all trades not only doesn't distract you from your efficacy in your chosen disciplines, it may well positively benefit your success in at least one of those fields. Marketing experts are always saying that a business needs to clearly identify its USP, a unique selling proposition. For a polymath, uniqueness is always a given. They often succeed because they are the first to come up with truly novel connections. Parenting, business, education, and even sports. There is no area of life that these principles don't apply to. Being a well-rounded and exquisitely unique individual will not only equip you with a range of valuable skills to draw on and combine, but will fundamentally strengthen your fluid intelligence and the underlying ability to think, learn on your feet, synthesize knowledge, and create, regardless of what discipline you find yourself in. The Renaissance Mindset. Business consultant and author Franz Johansson describes the Medici effect as the emergence of new ideas and creative solutions when different backgrounds and disciplines come together. The term is derived from the 15th century Medici family, who helped usher in the Renaissance by bringing together artists, writers, philosophers, mathematicians, and other creatives from all over the world. Arguably, The Renaissance was a result of the exchange of ideas between these different groups in close proximity with each other in 15th century Florence and Rome. Sound familiar? If you're unable to diversify your own talent and skill, then having others around you to compensate might very well just do the trick. Johansson proposes that in the modern business world as well, the Medici effect is the key to best meeting client needs and maximizing profits while minimizing costs. Believing that all new ideas come from merging existing notions in creative ways, he recommends utilizing a mix of backgrounds, experiences, and expertise in staffing to bring about the best possible solutions, perspectives, and innovations in business. And the same holds true for creativity and problem-solving in general as well. Pulling in knowledge from different disciplines and relating concepts from various fields are powerful tools for generating creative ideas. A common object in one field may be an extraordinary tool in another. A perspective or approach might be commonplace in one discipline but revolutionary in a different one. A conventional concept in one discipline may have new and interesting applications in a different domain. For example, creative methods of implementing traffic rules have pulled ideas from not only electronics, engineering, and information technology, but also from visual arts, psychology, and advertising. It's a familiar concept in psychology that people, when making decisions, rely on not only rational information but also emotional cues. This concept has led to the innovation of using smiley faces in traffic lights to get more people to respond to them. The advantages of pulling together knowledge and resources from multiple disciplines to aid problem solving are evident in the findings of researcher and professor Brian Utze. Analyzing over 26 million scientific papers published over the last several centuries, Professor Utze found that the most impactful have been those done by teams whose members have an atypical combination of backgrounds. Another investigation he conducted revealed that top-performing studies cited an uncommon combination of other studies, often pulling in at least 10% of their citations from fields other than their own. It is perhaps no coincidence that we still speak of Leonardo da Vinci and his polymathic tendencies. Perhaps it's due to those very tendencies. At the very least, he was an accomplished painter, sculptor, engineer, architect, and anatomist. He also possessed keen interests in ornithology, machinery, and ciphers. He is the prime example of how different disciplines can come together, synergize, and spit out creative work that is revolutionary and innovative. It's also no coincidence that the Medici family was one of da Vinci's prime patrons during his lifetime. Albert Einstein also utilized this concept in his method of combinatory play, in which we will cover in a later chapter when we delve more deeply into his specific tactics for creativity and innovative thinking. T-shaped problems. What if honing specialist knowledge and skill could actually act against you in some ways? Enter the Einstellung effect, German for setting or attitude, which explains why only embodying a T shape can inadvertently reduce your creative problem-solving skills and trap you in a prison of your own knowledge. Nobody would argue that developing niche expertise is a waste. However, this expertise can also act as a burden and hindrance. If, as an expert, you rely on the knowledge and experience you already have, you're at a distinct disadvantage wherever novelty of thought is called for. Have you ever seen a layperson offer a more creative or intelligent solution to a problem than all the so-called experts? This effect could explain why. If you know exactly how something should and usually does play out, then it's hard to break out of this type of fixed thinking. To the man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Research actually shows that practiced expertise hampers creative problem solving in some instances. Accumulated knowledge is a wonderful thing, but it's also stiff and rigid and less liable to respond fluidly in the moment. Experts may cling to a classic and obvious solution so tightly that they fail to see the better alternative staring them in the face. The Einstellung effect was first described in 1942 by Lukens and Lukens, who had study participants conduct a water jar experiment, amongst many other variations. They asked them to measure out a specific quantity of water using a series of 3 jars of different capacities. One group was allowed to try out the task and arrive at a formula that would solve the problem. The other group didn't participate in this round. Both groups were then given a similar task, but where the solution was quite simple. The group who had already gained expertise of the formula unsurprisingly tried to apply it again, missing the simpler solution, which the second group, with no practice or experience, found more easily. This outcome shows us that prior knowledge can act as a preconceived solution that can actively block a better option from being discovered. Counterintuitively, the first group were the experts, but performed worse because of it. It certainly makes you reconsider all those experts in the world keen to tell us how things should be done. Knowing this about the Einstellung effect, and knowing that experts can often charge more for their services, you can ask whether some problems in your life could be better solved by more creative and cheaper non-experts. Follow-up research has showed similar results with creativity puzzles that non-experts seem to fare better with. Carl Dunker's famous candle problem showed that when people had preconceived ideas about how tools should be used, in this case a box of matches, a candle, and some thumbtacks, they failed to find unconventional solutions. Mounting the candle on the wall by using the matchbox as a ledge rather than lighting the candle with the matches. What the participants already knew actively prevented them from seeing what was in front of them and learning anything new. Of course, what if the participants' knowledge base was more pie-shaped or even comb-shaped, and they were able to draw in solutions and approaches from different industries and realms of knowledge? Well, you already know the probable outcome. Here's food for thought. If you are T-shaped, no matter the reason, it is akin to working on the assembly line in one of Henry Ford's factories. That is, each person has one function only, and, as such, can be easily replaced at any time. The more polymathic you can be, the more functions you can inhabit, and the less replaceable you will become. In the next section, we'll consider not the literal activities that polymaths are drawn to, but the underlying attitude that allows them to work as they do. Takeaways. When we think of the word polymath, we think of geniuses throughout history whose achievements we have no chance of coming close to. That may be true, but there are nuggets of knowledge we can utilize from studying their approaches and combination of mastery. A polymath who's someone who is an expert in multiple fields. It may seem like an oversimplification, but that's the essence of it. However, the magic happens when these multiple fields collide and help you navigate, solve problems, and think outside of the box. The approach espoused in this book is to become at least pie-shaped, and ideally comb or even star-shaped. This stands in contrast to being T-shaped. Horizontal lines represent breadth of knowledge, while vertical ones show depth of knowledge. Who has time for that? Well, plenty of people, and there are multiple studies showing the efficacy of teams with diverse backgrounds, individuals with a wide array of talents, and the high performance of people who apply old knowledge to new situations. Leonardo da Vinci, Elon Musk, Benjamin Franklin, and Aristotle, to name a few. This type of intermixing is theorized to actually have caused the Renaissance period in Florence, Italy. It may seem like we're beating a dead horse already, but the importance of gaining diversity of knowledge cannot be overstated. There's even a problem associated with having too much knowledge in one field, a dilemma of expertise that runs too deep. This is called the Einstellung effect, and it essentially describes a man with a hammer who sees everything as a nail. The deeper you're immersed in one subject, the harder it is to see other tools, methods, approaches, and perspectives outside of your own. A biologist will see only biology-related problems and so on. The easiest way to think about polymathy is the picture working on the assembly line in one of Henry Ford's factories. That is, each person has one function only, and as such, can be easily replaced at any time. The more polymathic you can be, the more functions you can inhabit, and the less replaceable you will become. If you found this information helpful and want to dive deeper into mastering new skills and disciplines, I highly recommend checking out the book Polymath by Peter Hollins. You can get your copy on Amazon today. And don't forget, of course, about the audiobook version, which is also available on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible for those who prefer audio learning. I encourage you to explore this fascinating world of accelerating learning and become a polymath yourself. Start your journey today by visiting our website at newtonmg.com or at Peter Hollins' website at bit.ly/Peter Hollins and unlock the secrets to becoming an expert in any skill or discipline you desire. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for excellence. Happy learning!